Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode in the Mobycon Webinar Series, Teaching an Adult to Ride, the COVID-19 Proof Method. I'm Melissa Bruntlett. I'm the International Communications Specialist here at Mobycon, and it's my pleasure today to introduce our next presenter, Angela van der Kloof. She's our International Strategic Advisor, focusing on everything from cycling to education, engagement, policy, planning, traffic education. And the reason she's presenting to you today is because she has spent, she's been teaching people how to cycle for nearly 30 years, and it's our pleasure to have her join us and give a few tips for you out there watching us. I'm going to welcome Angela in and ask just to give a preview of what people can expect to learn today.
Yeah, so we have a number of topics that we'll go through. I will talk about basic ideas behind the method that we use for cycle training for adults. Then we talk about creating safe learning spaces. Then, actually do the steps, see how it works with the bike here in the studio. Then about roles of the teacher, like, okay, if you're not going to hold the person, because we say it's COVID-proof, right? Then what are you going to do if you don't do that? Common barriers for learning, because there are several barriers that people have inside themselves to learn to cycle, and tips to overcome these barriers. And of course, we will have opportunities to hear from the people, in their homes, what their experiences are and what tips they have to share.
Perfect. Okay. So I will hand it over to you. Just a quick reminder that we are going to be using Menti today, so for some questions throughout the webinar. So please log in now, and in the next slide you'll see the code for the Mentimeter to join us. All right, thanks Angela, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining us today. It is a pleasure to share some of my ideas and experiences about teaching adults to ride bikes. And I wanted to start with asking you who you are, because it's also, although we don't see each other, it is nice to hear a little bit about who you are. So please go to www.menti.com. Then you log in with the code 640714. You see it on the top of the slide. And then you can answer the question, what description fits you best? So you're a volunteer in a cycling education organization, you do teaching as a job, you want to teach somebody to ride a bike, maybe this summer, maybe a family member, a neighbor, whatever. You organize and support bicycle lessons maybe, but you don't teach yourself. Maybe you want to learn to ride a bike yourself and you want to get ideas of how you can do this, or you're just curious about this topic. So we have 3 people who have answered so far. I'll wait a little bit to give you time to go to that website, to log in. I know what it's like when you sit behind your screen and think, oh my God, now I have to change screens and I have to log in. But once you're in, it's super simple. And it would be nice to hear from you so that we have a sense of who we all are, who are in this same virtual space at the moment. Yes, more people are managing to log in and to answer. Thank you. Yeah, several people already teach people to ride or want to teach. Some curious people. Few more answers are coming in. I'll wait a little bit more because there is a bit of a delay in the program, the Menti website and then our slides here in the studio. So I'll wait for a few more answers to come in. Also to encourage you to really use this, because in the next 30 minutes or so we will be asking a few more questions, and it will be nice to although we're not together in the same room, it will be nice to share some of our experiences, because as you already saw, several people have experience in cycle training, and it is nice also to know about each other and learn from each other. Okay, so far 8 people have answered. Many more have subscribed for the webinar, but let's see. Maybe we should just move on. You can maybe then answer the next question. So the next question is how many years of experience you have in teaching cycling. Maybe you have no experience, less than a year, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, or more than 10. So if you haven't managed yet, you can go to www.menti.com and use that code 640714. Okay, some people no experience, others quite a bit of experience, up to 5 years. Again, we have now 8 people. Okay. Well, all the others who haven't managed yet, you have the time, in the next minutes to also log into that, because also at the end of the presentation we will get back to Menti and use it. Yeah, quite a few people have experience for multiple years. Nice, we have 10 people now who have responded. Let's wait a little bit. No, okay, move on. Next question, there's one more question now. And here you can just enter text. What do you find the most difficult in teaching adults to cycle in times of COVID-19? Maybe the people, who already have some experience, maybe they're still working on cycle training, cycling education, or they're worried that there will be too much touching or people will be too close, so they stopped and are figuring out how to do it without touching. It is not applicable, says someone. So I guess the teaching is not applicable at the moment. Yeah, we want to avoid physical contact, indeed. Yeah, how to eliminate the classroom portion. So you want to be outside, where you have less risk of infecting each other. Knowing whether I should or not. Knowing whether I should or not. I wouldn't be teaching people I know or have contact with otherwise. Children and day camps, yeah, you can use, of course, the same method with children. Many people hold children up to some point and run with them. And actually when me and my co-workers started to do cycle training, that's what we tried first, to hold people, run with them, and teaching them to balance, but we were very unhappy with that method. So over time we learned how to do it in ways that we wouldn't touch people. Lack of space for as many people as before. Yeah, maybe you need to adapt the number of people that are involved in the class. Middle school students in physical education classes. The class is traffic safety, but many don't know how to ride. Indeed, that is, traffic safety is partly about physical cycling and partly about knowing the rules of the road. And the physical part, you don't want to having to use to touch people and to run with them. So we're going to go through how we can do that. Thank you for all these answers. If you want to share anything else, feel free to add it, and we can also go through that after the webinar and get back with more information afterwards. So the basic ideas of the step-by-step method, as we call it, are first of all that you as a teacher, you are the facilitator. You facilitate another adult to learn to ride the bicycle. So this person, he or she can do it on her own It is not you who is, the most active, but it is the learner. Then, really important, and this is something that I really had to learn, no rush. Be patient, take your time, and let the learner take their time. I find that really important. Then, the method is called step by step because we split up the learning process in many small steps. Because if you have a lot of small steps, then for each small step you create success. Each time you have a small success story, and this builds confidence. And this gives this positive vibe and empowers people. And then it is important to keep in mind that different people may have different learning styles. The basic learning styles are listening, watching, and trying out. So oftentimes, you may want to use a combination of that. And my experience is that especially when you mostly use talking and listening as a learning style, it's really difficult to learn to cycle because cycling is about doing and more about watching than about listening. For some people it helps, but usually when the bike is like between your legs, you cannot think of anything and you don't hear of anything. So you keep in mind that there's different ways to teach people, not just by telling them. So before we go to the actual steps, I think it's important to talk a little bit about creating a safe learning environment. Because in order to learn, people need a safe space. They need to feel comfortable. And, two basic things are important for that. First of all, the physical safety. And secondly, a safe atmosphere. And whether you do this cycle training one-on-one or in small groups or in a bigger group, the atmosphere has to be positive, open. So let's have a closer look at that. Creating the physical safety, what I find really important, first of all, is to have a safe location. You don't want a lot of traffic, you want to have space. Maybe you don't want to have too much space because then, you swerve and you have no idea where you're going. But, it needs to be safe so you don't bump into stuff all the time and don't bump into other people who are learning to bike. Then, very important, a low upright bicycle. I brought one to show a little bit later on, but it's really important that the learner can sit on the saddle, have the feet on the ground, and sit. I'm a big fan of the Dutch upright bicycle position because then your weight is going to the ground, so it helps you to ground. And cycling is really about grounding and making speed. So when you're on an upright bicycle, it really helps. Whereas when you're on a mountain bike style, your weight is, and your energy is going up, and it makes you much more vulnerable and not as stable on the ground. And then lastly, I find comfortable, non-slippery shoes really important because you don't want to slip off the pedals. The safe atmosphere. An open attitude, it is kind of maybe a no-brainer, but it can be difficult, especially when you work with people from different cultures, or when you work with people who have a very different lifestyle than you have. Then still an open attitude and taking things as they are is really important. Try to be clear about what you want from people, or show clearly what you want them to do. Have relevant conversations. Don't talk about yourself all the time or about previous problems that were whatever, but ask, how would you like to learn? How do you think it's going? And so to keep it relevant for the cycling. Show and celebrate progress. These small steps, they create progress and they make it visible, so celebrate it. Laugh together, yell together. But also welcome mistakes, because mistakes are great ways to learn things. And when you make mistakes, when you try things on the bicycle, you know, your body will learn what works and doesn't work, and that's really important. So now we go to the different steps. We have, you could say what I want to talk about are two phases. Phase A is about learning the movement of cycling, learning to pedal, the very basic stuff. And then the second phase, phase B, is more about getting prepared to start practicing in the streets, because at some point, you know, maybe some people only want to ride in the park, okay, but many people want to use it for transportation. So at some point you have to go onto the street. And I think I want to show you some things with the bicycle. And I'll leave the clicker here. So first of all, I don't know, yeah, so I have brought this cute bicycle. Can you see it well enough on the video? So we're taking the camera here so you can have a better look at the kind of bike that I brought. This, you know, you have to raise your leg quite a bit. It's even nicer when this is lower. But, you know, if you manage to find a bike on which you can sit on the saddle comfortably, have your feet on the ground, that's really nice, because then you're not so afraid to fall. Because when you don't know how to cycle, you're afraid to fall. So first you start, you know, you walk with the bicycle. That's already a way to learn about where the pedals are and how your feet move around with the bike. And then you sit like this on the saddle. And maybe you want to have people push with both feet, you know, walk a little bit like that. I don't have a lot of space here, you know, but you want people to go forward, either with 2 feet, like this, or maybe 1 foot on the pedal and the other foot is pushing. And then you start making speed and you give people the opportunity to learn to balance. So once, you know, that is going somewhat smooth, yeah, this is a bike with a back brake, so you sometimes need to raise the saddle. Once, you know, a person is comfortable in pushing like this and creating some speed, you need the speed, then you start, you help them to start, you know, putting your feet on the pedal, your other foot on the pedal, the high one, and maybe, you know, you start doing it when you don't go too fast yet, but it works better when you have some speed, so people can also feel, okay, I don't have enough speed yet, I need more speed before the bike stays in balance and gives me time to raise my foot. So you push and you go up and back. It's no problem if you don't cycle away straight away. It's already a step to push, push, you touch it and you go back. So again, this is an example of a very small step and you can celebrate it. You can say, yeah, you touched the pedal, great. Now we go, you know, try it again and again. And at some point, the learner will herself start to pedal. So once they know that, now it gets more complicated with little space. But once they know that, they can, you know, start, pedal, and then learn to keep the bike drifting without pedaling. So then you learn that the bicycle, once it's in motion, and it's fast enough, then you don't have to pedal all the time. Because if you do that, you go too fast. And then it gets really scary. So once they're on the saddle without pedaling, they do the drifting, then you start to learn to stop. And that, of course, depends on whether you have a foot brake, like this one or a hand brake. But you also break that up in small steps. And once you know how to mount and stop, it is important to start raising awareness about, and looking around to have people just pedal, but at the same time start to, take a look and not just move the head, but actually see what is happening around them. Because, of course, when you are in traffic with your bicycle, you have to be aware of what is going on around you. So it is important to practice that and to make people aware. And then the last thing in this phase A is to take off without swerving. And for that, again, you need the speed. So, very important is the grounding, having the energy go down and forward. Of course, it is not just, it is not just with the bicycle that you do all the exercises. You can also think of, exercises that you maybe know from fitness training or yoga or Pilates, but exercises to work on balancing, on strength, on grounding, they are all really helpful. And so it's a good idea to sometimes just get rid of the bicycle and just work with the body, because that really helps the grounding process. Then we go to the phase B. So that phase where you start thinking and learning about being conscious of others, being conscious of bumps in the road or the sidewalk with height difference and all that. So you start, to practice to actually see things. So maybe you want to create sheets with numbers or letters on it, and you say, okay, you cycle around, I hold a number, and then the learner has to shout, oh, number 1, number 10. So you practice that you actually have to see what is there. Another thing to learn in this phase B, and there is no special order here, but is to make turns and to make, small curves and bigger curves. And for some people, they prefer the small curves, or some others prefer the wide curves. So make sure that you have a combination of both, and don't, take right turns all the time and forget to have people practice taking left turns. The signaling, that's another interesting one. Of course, not in every country there are the same rules about how to signal. So in the Netherlands, I'll show it on the bike again. In the Netherlands, you would typically, signal with your arm. You stretch your arm to the left or to the right. But when you learn, and you're glad that you're speeding and everything, and you don't want to get your hands off the handlebar, that's super scary. So you don't want people to immediately do it like this. You start with small steps just to loosen it a little bit, just a little bit, and then further. And you can also practice it first while you're standing still, like I am now, and then later on you practice this as you're riding. But first to have the body feel comfortable with even loosening the handlebar. So that's also why it's so nice to have an upright, small bicycle with your feet on the ground, so you can stand like I'm standing now, and you're not worried to fall. And once you are, a little bit familiar with all of this, it is time to learn about, okay, if I do the signaling when I approach an intersection, what is the good timing to do a signaling, and to combine well, especially over here in the Netherlands, when you make a left turn, to combine it with looking backwards and seeing if there's any traffic there. So there you start to combine seeing what is happening around you with making turns and signaling. Yeah, so that is, in a nutshell, the first two phases of learning to cycle. And once that is, more or less convenient, then you can start to cycle in slow traffic and learn more about anticipating with other traffic and applying rules of the road. Although what I do want to say is that, for instance, if a person is capable of doing many of these steps but is very uncomfortable with signaling with the hands, then I would start practicing in traffic together. So you can signal and the other person can follow, because it will encourage this person to learn to signal over time. Yeah, so that is what I wanted to show on the bicycle. You can even have a better look at that in a 2-minute video that is part of a longer video and a teaching document that we have created multiple years ago. Oh, no. Let's see. I should be going. I'm not seeing the video.
3 fingers.
Okay. 3 fingers for the video. And okay. It's not happening. I'm sorry. The video is not showing yet, but Melissa is here to help me.
Hi, everyone. What?
Sorry, this is always an awkward moment when you're online, real time. It's coming.
There we go.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that short video. That is also on YouTube. We will send you the link so you can watch it later. And yeah, we also have a 15-minute video. You know, it is 20 years old, but the method hasn't changed. You know, and if it is in Dutch, the communication in the video, and you know, if anyone after this webinar is interested also to collaborate on something and making something new, then of course we're always open for ideas about that. Yeah, so you have a sense now of you know, the way that we teach adults to write without touching them. And so how come that you don't have to touch them? Well, this has to do with the role that you take as a teacher. So what do you keep in mind when teaching? So it is your role to create this safe learning environment. So to make sure that there is enough space to move around on the bicycles, that there is no traffic, but also to create this positive atmosphere and to facilitate everyone to try things themselves. So you show what they should be doing, and they can copy what you do. Ideally, you also have a low bike yourself, so you can actually you know, show things the way that they can copy it as much as possible the way that it looks when you're on the bike, and you just give them space and time to try things out. It's really important that they can experiment and make mistakes. Of course, you don't want them, you know, to fall and hurt themselves, so that's why you have this low bicycle with the feet easily on the ground. If things don't work, try to make the steps even smaller, make it simpler, or go a few steps back and repeat what you were doing there. Maybe, for example, you were already practicing to brake, but then it turns out that this person is not making enough speed to actually ride, and then it gets mixed up. So you just take a few steps back and then you go forward again. And of course, it is very important, you know, an important role as a teacher is to encourage people, to show them, yes, you have created a new step, yes, you're making progress, it's going perfect. Yeah, there are a lot of barriers to learning to cycle. So I see that some people have already answered this question, thank you. You can go to Menti again and share what you have come across. What barriers did you see that people have, or maybe yourself, maybe you may have had it yourself when you learned to cycle. What kind of barriers did you encounter? So I see fear of traffic, the size of the bike, the culture, no childcare, anxiety. Yeah, we'll wait a little bit for a few more answers. But there's already, you know, very familiar answers there to me. Too afraid of accidents, not having a bike, a wrong size of the bike. Yes, that's a very common one, and I am aware that in other countries it's not always that easy to find a bicycle that fits to learn, especially if you want the upright bicycles. I think the bicycle industry has a nice, what do you call it? Has a nice task there to help us, people, overcome that kind of barriers. So fear is really a big barrier. Almost every adult who learns to cycle is afraid. Afraid for falling, afraid for scratching a car or some other object, hurting yourself, hurting others, maybe, you know, breaking your leg, and then you cannot afford, you know, to being out of the family. Maybe you have a household to run, and then you break a leg, and then, you know, how is your family supposed to survive? So that is a very real fear, especially for a lot of females. Then shame. being ashamed that you've never learned to cycle, or being ashamed to cycle as a woman. A lot of women have been told that cycling is not for decent women, cycling is for men, or for boys, also for men, maybe they're not allowed to cycle in their suits because it's not appropriate. Maybe you did want to learn and you still can't, and you are ashamed of yourself that you've never had the courage to actually do it. Then there's uncertainty. Can I really learn this? Is this something for me? How will I ever succeed? Another type of barrier has to do with passive or sedentary lifestyles. People who sit in the house or at their job a lot of the time, they don't have a lot of strength, they have a poor stamina, they have little experience, and then to cycle is not the easiest thing to learn, because cycling is really about, this grounding, making speed, balancing. You have to do many things at the same time. And then especially when you go into traffic, it gets complicated. Once you know it, you don't think it's complicated. But to learn it as an adult is not simple. And some people, they just have health issues. They really have balance problems, or they have mental health problems. Some people have a trauma and they really need more time to, especially, for the grounding, for the being relaxed, for learning new movements and feeling what you are doing. So at the same time, this is a barrier, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity also to overcome these barriers and to empower, yourself, and you as a teacher, you facilitate others to empower themselves. So, this is a bit of a summary of the different issues, the different barriers. But then there's another question. What signals do you know that show that there is a barrier? So the ones who are experienced, or the ones who have worked with people with different barriers to learn, what type of things do people do that make you aware that there are certain barriers? Let's see what comes up. No problem if you have no ideas. I have some, so I'll share them anyway. Okay. Either it's a difficult question, or there are some technical issues, or it's really hard to put that in a few words in Mentimeter. Oh, thank you. Some things are, they don't show up. Yeah, people don't show up to their lesson, and you think, why am I spending my time on this? They're not even showing up. Hesitation, excuses, yeah. Attendance, again. Lack of confidence. Okay. 5 people have responded, 6, thank you. Canceling, freezing, yeah, so you're totally blocked, you cannot learn. And then always the big question is, okay, what now? What can I do, to help them to acknowledge this barrier and to actually do something together? How are they open for me to help them? And of course, this is always hard. You see the tension on the body, exactly. Don't progress as normal in the beginning. They talk too much. Yeah, so I guess this person means that, they talk too much while stopped, so you want to explain something, and then this person talks, to get, rid of their thoughts and their anxiety, and just, don't have to kick off again. Not having a bike, yeah. I'll never learn. Great. Good answers. Good to see so many answers coming in. Okay, well, thank you. I summarized some of the things that I have encountered over the years. Tension, oh, that was too fast. Tension is a big problem. For instance, you know, holding the handlebars like that, because they think that you steer with the handlebars and it will, you know, keep you safe. So again, the low bicycle is really important so you can relax and have the weight and the energy go down, go to the ground. Also looking down convulsively, looking down all the time is really, and then so tense. It's really interesting when you teach and you haven't done this before, go on a bike and start, you know, holding the handlebar very tense and looking down, trying to pedal, see what happens, and you really start to feel like, oh my God, this is terrible. So then you can think of exercises, how to get rid of that tension. Another problem is the balancing, difficulty with standing on one leg, for instance. You know, if you notice that with a person, you can also practice it, and then you see, oh wow, balance is a problem. And balance is something you can work on with and without the bicycle. They can also work on that at home. So they don't need you to do that only with you in class, but they need to feel the confidence to practice that by themselves at home. Yeah, poor stamina is something you can recognize. You know, for instance, many and exhaustion. You even when you walk with the bicycle for a few hundred meters, and then they're like, you know, this is too much. And the attitude. I saw quite a few answers in the Mentimeter about the attitude. Hesitance, being defensive, being scared, not showing up. Yeah, and especially when people don't show up, then it's really too hard to help them. So then it's again about, okay, how can I create this atmosphere that is open and that is welcoming for them, even if they don't come all the time. You know, each time they do come, they're welcome. Yeah, so those are kind of the basic barriers that you can recognize and that you can try to work with. Of course, you want to try to overcome these barriers, and I'm sure that people have tips. Yes, thank you. There's already tips there in the Mentimeter. And what I would like to do is to collect also all your tips for each other and for me. And after maybe next week or so, we will send out and share a document where we share these tips. So if you have any great hidden tip, please go to menti.com, use the code and share it with us, because we will, you know, it will be shared around the world. And yeah, this way we can help that, you know, in this period of COVID-19, we help each other, by learning others to cycle so that they also have the transportation that they need. Patience, lots of patience, that's a tip. Yeah, and maybe somebody has a tip when you're not patient by nature. How do you, you know, how will you be more patient? That would be interesting, maybe. Being relentlessly but gently optimistic, yeah. Nice, encourage them all the way, celebrate success, friendly, humor, very good. Learning in a space with few onlookers, yes, that is indeed also about a safe space, not having the neighbor watch you, what you're doing, because people are scared, they are ashamed, well, whatever. Coaching people, share testimonials by new riders. Yeah, thank you, great tips coming in. Start slow, walking with the bike. Send them videos. Oh, that's an interesting one too. So I guess videos that show exercises about how they can do things, or I don't know, maybe motivational speeches. I'm not sure. Peer-to-peer encouragement, smile friendly. Yeah, thank you for all these tips, and keep them coming in. We will share them with everyone. So my few tips to help overcome barriers is, you know, a lot of was already in this presentation. Creating a safe learning space. Don't rush participants. At the same time, also don't rush yourself. Be kind to yourself. You know, when nothing happens, when there's little progress, you know, don't worry. It will come. No rush. Take small steps. Exercises with and without the bicycle, especially the ones without the bicycle, can be really, phew. You know, you get rid of that machine that you're afraid of. So that really helps. Celebrating, enjoying, giving people time to let progress sink in. When I just started, you know, teaching people to ride bicycles, I was really always like, go, 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 yes, you can do it, next step, da, 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 da. And at some point I noticed, oh, this is crazy. Just, you know, let them circle around and enjoy what is happening. They've never done this before, so it's great to enjoy this. Give people trust. And a very important one, if somebody is really nervous or is really afraid, don't tell them that there's no need to be nervous. Don't tell them that there's no need to be afraid, because they are. They are afraid. Just acknowledge it and say, yes, many adults who learn to ride bikes are afraid. It is scary, yes, but over time, you know, by practice and doing these exercises, it will fade away and you will manage. Now you're afraid, but it will fade away. It's really when you say, oh no, there's no reason to be afraid, then you feel like, oh my God, but I am afraid. And so then there's nowhere to go with that feeling. And when you work with adults, always try to find things that people, you know, that are already in the minds of people, and connect with that. If they already know certain movements, or maybe they know certain exercises, try to connect with that and then bring the bicycle in, because adults are not children. They have experiences, they have stories, you know, they have an adult life. So acknowledge that, and that will really also help to create this safe space and connect new knowledge with what is already there. And that's it. That's what I wanted to share. And we have time for questions.
Okay. Thanks very much, Angela. That was informative even for me. The patience thing, we were just talking earlier. I struggled with patience with both of our kids, teaching them, so this would have been a good lesson 10 years ago or so. So we do have an opportunity for questions if you would like to enter some into the Mentimeter. And I just, whoop, nope, too far. Wrong way, what's happening? We are having no luck today. Back it up. Questions. Okay. First question. Would you recommend removing pedals for people when they're learning to ride? Or some people anyway.
Yeah, well, maybe for some people, like if it's really a trouble and they've tried and it doesn't work, yeah, then you can do that. But personally, I find it a lot of hassle to take them off, and then maybe for another person you have to put them on again. So that's one part of my answer. So I would only do it if you see it's really necessary. The other reason not to do it is because you know, your body learns about where the pedals are, you know, how the machine operates. So that's helpful. So, and if you take them off, you remove that opportunity to learn. But of course, if a person struggles a lot or has bruises all over the legs, then you may want to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. Do you think it's possible to keep the 1.5 meter distance at all times?
Well, let's see. It is, yeah, it's definitely possible. But I mean, in daily life, I already encounter that sometimes, you know, it is 1.5 meters is quite far. So you really have to train yourself, you know, what that distance is, and I guess you have to really speak up. But the method, the making the steps and not having to hold people does allow you to keep that distance. So I would say yes, it's possible.
Okay. Next question is, Do you think that teaching in a group or individually is better?
Yeah, I think I like it when it's in a smaller group. I like teaching in a smaller group because then people also learn from each other. They see that they are not the only ones having certain issues. They can give each other tips. But some people are really not good in groups.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a matter of understanding who those people are and trying to help them.
Yes, and also, when there is no group, when there's only one person who wants to learn or only two, then I would encourage you to just do that lesson because, it's again one person or it's two persons and others, they are great ambassadors for others.
That's true.
Yeah.
I remember when we interviewed you ages ago, you said that one person then brings that knowledge out to their community often.
Yeah.
Which I think is really special.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, how long do you usually spend on teaching an adult who's a complete beginner, or is it kind of different?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I wouldn't say it's very different for everyone. I think that, and maybe it also depends on context, where you are. So here in the Netherlands, what I see is that in many places where there are group lessons, having 10 to 15 lessons gives many women, in the Netherlands it's mostly women who learn to ride, an opportunity to learn many things. Some really need more lessons, some are quicker. But if you start off with like 15 lessons of an hour or so,
Mm-hmm.
and some people squeeze it into a week, like each morning learning to bike. And for some that works better, for others, it's better, they need more time. Yeah, so it is different, but 15 lessons is quite good, I would say.
Okay. We are not going to address this one because it's different for everyone. So it's really challenging for us to provide an answer for people where there's mandated helmet use versus not. So we're going to leave this one. Okay. Would you recommend lowering the saddle a lot at the start?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you also have to see that to make sure that the knees do not touch the handlebars. So that can be challenging. You need enough space also between the saddle and the handlebar. But I would really try to lower it as much as possible so you have your both feet on the ground. And if they're flat on the ground, that's great because then you have more stability. Mm-hmm. And you will see, what I find really surprising is that, women start a course and they can hardly sit in the saddle and then have the feet on the ground. And then you're a few weeks further in the course and somehow it seems as if their legs have grown. But it's just because they're not that tense, they're no longer stressing that much.
Yeah.
They're more relaxed and then, somehow their legs seem to be longer. So at some point you can raise the saddle.
Okay, a little bit of growth. Okay. So you're welcome, or Angela's welcome. Are other resources available? That's actually a great question. We do have a link following up with the link to the video that Angela showed, and she has a couple. Actually, if you want to, do you want to show what you have?
So I have some materials that are somewhat older and in Dutch. So I'm not sure whether this person is from the Netherlands or abroad. But we have this teaching manual, learning adults to ride. So for teachers, with a card with different steps on it, the different faces, and there is a 15-minute video with that. And we also have booklets about learning the rules of the road, especially for people in the Netherlands who don't speak and read and write the language very well. And it starts really simple explaining the rules. And as I said, we would be totally open for some kind of cooperation with other people in other countries to create. I would love to create something in English as a resource for many people. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah. And just as a note, you created these in collaboration with the people that you worked with.
Yes.
So other partners in Tilburg?
In Tilburg, yeah.
Okay. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to maybe 2 or 3 more questions, depending. So it seems to be more difficult to teach someone close to you as opposed to someone else, whether that's through bad experiences or trauma. Any tips to manage that in a healthy, positive way?
Ooh. Yeah. So someone close to you, meaning like your wife or a child, you know, a child who hasn't learned, or I think oftentimes patience is a thing, and because you know each other so well, you may want to ask somebody else to teach your partner or or relative when you feel that the synergy is not there. And people with bad experiences or even trauma, that's another thing, of course. And again, of course, you're not a therapist. You try to focus on the teaching, but you acknowledge that there's feelings and there is anxiety. And you don't push that away. That is at least how I have always tried to do it, and I'm not saying that I've always been successful, because some people just don't learn; they're totally blocked, and they need other help. Yeah. But many people will experience that this learning to cycle helps them. To learn something new, to be empowered, to feel that they can make progress. Yeah. So I hope this helps.
Okay. This was a question I meant to expand on, but how big of a group do you recommend? If I know you said you like them small, preferably, but how big do you normally try to be?
I think it really. So ideally, you want quite a bit of a group, so that you have numbers, numbers of people who are writing, numbers of people who can help each other, but you also want quality time, for people to really, for teachers to really work with students. And because it can be at a really different level, that takes a bit of time, and it also depends on how much space you have. I think most of the time we said, okay, if you have one trainer, then you have 2 to 3 max students. And otherwise you want to find more volunteers or people to help. I know that some people are really good at working with bigger groups. I'm not that good at that myself. When you do all these exercises and you really want to give tailor-made examples. But some people are better at bigger groups, and then you can try. But I like it somewhat smaller. Yeah,
and it's always nice to have that opportunity to connect with whoever you're working with. It helps to, like you were mentioning, overcome some of those mental barriers they might be having, just to feel like someone cares what they're learning, what they're doing.
And at the same time, I think having one-on-one training is also, there's also negatives about that, because then maybe you are really, like in Dutch we say, you're in the neck of the person. You're like all the time, you're spending so much time, and they don't have an opportunity to just try and enjoy the moment, for themselves. So that's what I like about the small groups.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll take one more question, just because everyone's got to get on with their day as well. So is there a way of managing a person's expectations, like saying we won't get you cycling after one session or things like that?
Yeah, so it can be really helpful to show a video of what you're going to do. This little trailer is maybe somewhat short, but to really to show in a video that you're going to make these, you're going to progress with little steps, and nobody is expecting you to ride straight away. I do recognize that people who sign up, they think that they are expected to ride away, you know, because they see the people who can cycle, they see them hop on their bikes and and they don't see what has, you know, what the practices or what the exercises have been towards that point. But I think you can oftentimes explain, and sometimes videos with steps like the ones I've shown can be really helpful.
I think it's important for them to understand, although we don't want anyone who's an adult learning to ride to feel like a child per se, but reminding them that most kids, it takes them several weeks, if not months, if not years to learn to ride. And so we're not expecting adults to learn faster than children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we have a few other questions, and so I will send them to Angela after this so she can have a chance to maybe answer a few of them. But we will just wrap up here today. If I can move this slide. There we go. So these were the resources that I mentioned earlier. So that's the link to the YouTube video. If you want to screen cap that, then you can go to there later. We did have Angela show the Dutch guides that she's prepared previously. Again, happy to find a way to put those into English or French or any other language that we can find translators for. Okay, so just a reminder that for all of our webinars, we're giving you sort of a brief intro into a lot of the education or knowledge sharing that we do. Part of that, beyond the webinars, we can offer through the Moby Coach program, where we work one-on-one with municipalities and organizations to basically be an on-call coach to help overcome barriers you might be facing, give a little bit of insight from the Dutch perspective or even international perspective to give you a little bit of assistance there. So please check that out if you're interested. Also, our next webinar, we're going to take about a month off because it's summer and we all deserve a break. But keeping in mind how we had questions left over, we've been paying attention. We also note that a lot of you enjoy the Q&A portion. So our next webinar is actually all Q&A. We're going to come back to some of the questions that were unanswered from our Creating Child-Friendly School Zones webinar, and also give you an opportunity to ask further questions. So keep an eye out for that in our newsletter and eventually also on social media to hopefully join us and ask some more questions. And Shelley and Sophie will be on hand to answer those for you. And then that's it for today. So thanks very much, everyone, very much for joining us. Sorry about those initial technical issues. I'm not sure what happened. That might be my fault, so I apologize ahead of time. So yeah, if you need to reach us, there's Angela and my emails, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks very much, and thank you, Angela.
Yeah, thank you.